What's the good word, y'all? DKB here. So I got a little situation to drop on you guys. Let me know what your thoughts are regarding this, but I think we might have the perfect situation to start to rebuild our offensive line in terms of the coaching ranks and what we currently have on deck to work with. 2 first rounders in Elijah Vera Tucker, Mekhi Becton. We have a promising young guy in Max Mitchell. We're going to invest more resources in there. We still have the veteran Laken Tomlinson that can potentially be fixed and salvaged. So let's dive into it. Bill Callahan is a name that's been coming up recently, and it's one that rang a bell for a bit, but I had to really sit for a minute and think why I recalled that name. And so for those that don't remember, he was actually with our New York Jets coaching staff during the Rex Ryan heyday, 2008 to 2011. Great times for us. I mean, we're talking in 2009 year, resetting record books in terms of leading the league in rushing yards, setting the franchise record for rushing yards with the New York Jets, and then just overseeing that whole situation. We'll kind of dive into that. But the thought process here is, hopefully it's a little bit of an upgrade, right? He would take John Benton's former position, which would be offensive line coach / run game coordinator. I think that might be the only way technically we entice him from the Cleveland Browns, unless we end up giving him a offensive coordinator role, which I wouldn't be as excited about. But here's the game plan. So we would bring in Bill Callahan to replace John Benton, and he's done well when he's had strong assistants around him as well. But a guy that I'm plucking out of the rumor mill that's volunteered himself that I think could be a huge attribute to this organization, and he's already proven years after years after years how heavily invested he is in his team, is former All-Pro, Pro Bowler, center Nick Mangold. So we bring him in essentially as an intern, an offensive assistant, whatever label you want to give him. If he turns out to be awesome at the job earlier on, there's no reason why we can't change his title, or we just give him more work and he's still an assistant. It doesn't honestly matter. But the thought process here is Bill Callahan is probably, top 2, top 3 in terms of best offensive line coaches in the NFL based on his experience, his resume, what he's done, the players that he's worked with that have taken off and have been developed. And we're talking about from a very young age in terms of still being on a rookie contract all the way up to having established veterans already that have seen improved years under Bill Callahan's tutelage. So let's dive a little bit into his history, right? We're talking about a guy that's been coaching since 1980, 43 years in the game. You're not going to find many guys walking around with, just that level of experience on his own. And it's not just 43 years of experience and he hasn't had anything notable happen, right? He's been able to kind of move around and do things. Offensive line coach primarily, which he's been in that role for about 24 years in some capacity, either 100% being in control of the offensive line, or he's done that by splitting duties with like assistant head coach, tight ends coach, etc., etc. So 24 years of those 43, going into 25, specifically dealing with the offensive line. We mentioned his background with us, all of the players that he's been able to work with. And we're also talking about, mind you, back in his Raiders tenure as a rookie head coach, he was able to secure himself a Super Bowl. One of the very few that can have that on their resume as a big ticket item. So he's bringing a lot to the table, right? When we talk about the players he's dealt with just on the New York Jets during that tenure alone, some of the biggest standouts, Nick Mangold, of course, DeBrickashaw Ferguson, Alan Faneca. We're talking about 9 Pro Bowls just between them. We've seen him work with Tyron Smith, Zach Martin, a couple of guys with the Cowboys. We've seen him lead top rushing offenses with the Redskins back in the heyday. There's been a lot. There's a lot. Just to sum it up. So currently, with him overseeing the Browns, there's an argument you can make that he's turned that unit into one of the best in the NFL. I mean, generally, you would recognize Dallas. You would recognize the Redskins to a certain degree. You will recognize the Browns, and generally wherever he goes, you're going to see a mass improvement. There's obviously been some things where the wheels have fallen off during certain tenures, but regardless of all of that, he's done a phenomenal job for the most part with the teams that he's been on. So when we talk about what he would bring, the experience, the resume, he all kind of recognition from players and coaches alike. And you're talking about a guy, if we do want to implement some kind of same rushing concepts of what we have been familiar with the last 2 years, he's essentially a wide zone scheme master. I mean, he's practically one of the forefathers of the rushing concepts we would like to implement. So not only does the role, the experience, the opportunity all become a perfect match for both sides, but we're also talking about not necessarily having to completely get away from what some of these players have already been known and been trusting in. But there's still going to be an opportunity for, whatever happens once we get our offensive coach. But I think this could be one of the strongest ways we can overcome some of our recent offensive line deficiencies. And when it comes to Nick Mangold, the idea is you come in, you learn under one of the best, scholars that you can in Bill Callahan. And while Nick Mangold can rely on a lot of his player experiences, maybe he gets more hands-on in terms of demonstrating or being able to implement some of the techniques that Bill Callahan would end up teaching our line. He can go back, become the studious guy, go work on the boards in terms of drawing up plays and, et cetera, et cetera. The X's and O's part from a coaching standpoint that he'll need to get under wraps. But I think that would be one of the best case scenarios. We get somebody for now in Bill Callahan that could probably turn this unit around almost immediately. We had a lot of hype about it being a top 10 unit before the season even started. And then things fell off. 6 tackles being rotated, multiple guards. You guys know the story. And then for future purposes, if he only lasts 2-3 seasons, whatever it looks like, we have Nick Mangold, who wants to be an established part of this franchise for the long term, that can slide right in and become the new offensive line coach and, maybe head coach one day. We can all dream for, the hills. But that would be my take. I think those would be 2 prime candidates that would do a tremendous job with this team. And one of the final things that I would say that would stick out about Bill Callahan as well, by the way, would be the fact that some of the things that have been highlighted the most, and this is even as recent as being with the Browns all the way back to when he was starting in the 80s, just getting into coaching, is that he's been kind of renowned for his player scouting reports in terms of having a very detailed, simplistic plan about where the opportunities to improve are going to be for his players, or what they're already doing well, kind of how to maintain and continue to slowly build on those. And one of the key things, which has been something Joe Douglas has been keen on since he's been brought in, and he's dumped tons and tons of resources into this offensive line. Bill Callahan also has a huge focus on cross-training his offensive linemen to be able to play multiple positions, and we have guys that have done that to a T already. I mean, Mekhi Becton didn't get a full chance to show it, but left tackle, right tackle, AVT can play essentially everything but center from what we've seen, and I would strongly say that he would be able to knock out that as well. And then Max Mitchell, maybe not the same versatility, but we're talking about maybe using him as an emergency guard. I think we could find a way to make it work. So, with that said, let me know what your guys' thoughts are. It's a pipe dream at the moment. I can't imagine this coming to fruition. If it does, I'm sold 100%. It doesn't matter who else that we bring in. The offensive line has been such a bit of a dumpster fire for so long, which is a bit of an over-exaggeration, but in the same token, not really when you consider what we've seen in the early 2000s. But again, let me know what your guys' thoughts are. Bill Callahan, doesn't matter what position we brought him in as a OC, offensive line coach, etc. And how would you guys feel about Nick Mangold joining the coaching staff as part of that support and coaching development pipeline? Either way, appreciate the support. I'll catch you guys again. Peace.